Yeah, well, today we're filming from the Commons in Melbourne, so it is going to look and sound a little bit different. But Christian and I had an amazing opportunity to come down and talk to some of the local creators in the area, starting today with Tom Lucey, who is a graphic designer, a lifelong learner, and a killer podcast host in his own right. So, as usual, let's get straight into it. Welcome to Dismantle.
I don't want to go through all the kind of backstory, but something that jumped out to me that I'd like to kind of start with is the idea of self-learning and education. Yeah. And I heard that you dropped out of design school in the first kind of semester after sort of thinking, this is what I want to do with my life.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah, I think when I reflect on that time, I wasn't ready to take the heat, which often comes with exploring design. I was too committed to the work that I was doing. I think it's like something I've learned along the way is that it's emotional and passionate in the creation of the work, but then when it's done or when it's ready to share, then I detach.
Yeah.
But at the time, I'd be so passionate and emotional with the work that I was creating, and still passionate and emotional when receiving critique. And I'd come from year 12, like doing Viscom, where it was just like everything I did was amazing, because it was the equivalent of there being one designer in a room of 30 other people. And then you go to university and it's like, well, that's not even that good, and you need to practice to get better at this craft.
Absolutely.
So yeah, with all of that, I packed it in. After 6 months, I went to Europe, and by the time I came back, I decided that I wanted to study business.
I mean, that was obviously a bit of pressure in that design school. Like you said, kind of you suddenly were in this saturated pool. Do you think a lot of design students get to that point as well? Like, is that a common feeling?
I think so. Particularly looking at like the numbers that start in this particular design program, and then those that represent the final class. That's where I found it interesting. Other universities just are really rigorous with the interviewing process, and will only decide on that. They'll decide on that core unit at the start. Whereas the university I went to, they just like open the gates. It wasn't portfolio based. It wasn't interview based. It was just like, if you have the right score, you can come in. And then by the end, it's the same number, which is good for revenue generation, but... Yeah,
absolutely. Just kind of what education is right now.
Yeah, exactly. But something else I think in the course which I felt disconnected to was the lack of real world projects, the idea of made up briefs. And I think during the course I struggled to find meaning in the work that I was doing. Yeah.
Dude, that's super important to actually find that.
Yeah.
Did you find a similar thing when you left that, you went and studied business, took your internship, again realised that wasn't for you?
Yeah.
When you started to go out there, did you find that design market was saturated again? But would you say you kind of had more maturity to approach it at that stage?
Yeah, I was coming at it from a different angle. I think by the time I'd finished that internship and realised that I wanted to get into design, fortunately I'd had about 3 years or 4 years to grow up, and was much more open to feedback, and kind of realised that that's the ingredient to improve. Yeah.
Would you still suggest, like if you were to do it again, a kid is talented and passionate in year 12, is that still the logical step to head into design school? And
everyone's different, and I don't think there's a blanket statement, but in my mind, that money could be allocated in so many different ways that would be better. It's almost like, give me that budget of 40K, and here's like so many awesome things that it can be applied to. I think the idea of like a 3 or 4 year course is like so long to be learning from the same school of thought. I see it more as like 3-month kind of sprints. It's like, all right, in these 3 months, I'm going to learn front-end web development. Okay. I don't see it as something that should be a 4 year.
What would you do if you had that 40K, if you had that money back again?
I think step one would be like a short course. And that could still be like an intensive one, like that's 5K. Or if I was really into type at the time, or like was excited by the thought of it, then you can do a type design intensive. Or it might be, you know, an online front-end web development course. All things that I've done over the last few years. But yeah, like making a smaller commitment, like you're still taking the risk, but it's like, what's the worst that's going to happen? 3 months have passed, you've spent 5K, and that's the higher end, yeah. Sure. And you've learnt a skill like that you can apply straight away.
Yeah.
Or like, well, yeah, you've learnt the skill anyway, and it could be that it's like, all right, this isn't for me, but it's exposed me to something else, the next thing to try out.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's about like constant experimentation.
Yeah. And exposure, like I love that you use that word too, because I think as creatives you need to expose yourself to different ideas and different people. And
totally.
And you said, yeah, I think everyone's path is quite unique, but you only figure out what that is by doing those kind of things. I think that the days are gone now where it's like, okay, I want to do graphic design in school, and you go, okay, here's now 2 paths. Either go and get an internship, or a job, or I go to uni and study. I think now that there are so many platforms for self-learning and self-application, and how just connected we are now in terms of reaching out to people that you admire and you can learn from. So yeah, man, I mean, what were kind of the big, would you say there were any snowball events that happened when you started your own biz? Yeah,
well, I mean, it wasn't a conscious decision, like from the very beginning.
Yep.
It started with like, I'd love to explore graphic design. Like, I'd love to work on some real projects. So the first thing that was the beginning was like, my housemate at the time was like, hey, my friend has started a jewelry company and she needs a logo.
Yeah.
I'm like, awesome.
Cool.
I better figure out how I'm going to charge for this. And I think at the time it was like $150. But in that process, like documented everything and I was like, cool, next one's going to be $300. And with each project, I was like, all right, I'm going to do these 3 courses on Skillshare and I'm going to read this book. And each project, and it's still to this day, it's like sick. I'm going to do that brand messaging course, or like, oh yeah, that's an opportunity to learn this in the project as well. Yeah. So that was the first thing, that project. I think the next one was, to give context, I worked in hospitality for about a year after this internship, while taking on projects and very slowly figuring out enough.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm not going to say figure out what I was doing, because that's never...
Dude, I still don't know what I'm doing.
Exactly, right. It's never fully known.
Yeah.
So the next key one would have been like leaving hospitality and deciding like, I'm never going to work in this industry again.
You set that down as a goal?
Yeah, well, it was kind of like, I was waiting tables, I was working behind the bar, and I'm like, this just isn't my thing, you know?
Yeah.
It's not that it's a bad thing that exists in the world,
no,
but it just doesn't, I want to run home and work on this project.
You had that self-awareness and then you actually took the steps to do something about it, right?
Yeah, yeah. So that would be another kind of, but there was no like, as there never is kind of, I woke up one day and then it all was taken care of.
What about, you know, I get asked quite a bit and we seem to figure it out in terms of this, particularly your space, how you actually identify the value that you're providing a client and then how to charge for it. At your level now, how do you charge your time out? Yeah,
it's well, it's interesting, the idea of charging for time. That's something that I've stopped doing and stopped quoting, and even thinking about projects from a time basis, you know.
Perfect.
Because, you know, once you get exposed to that, it's really hard to unsee ideas like charging by the hour. I'm punishing myself for being efficient. And they're paying more for inefficiency. It doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, and then you get caught into adding for extra time and all that kind of crap.
Yeah, so much more recently, it's value based, because the stepping stone from charging hourly is charging project based and having a flat rate for projects of a particular variety. But now there's this new experience I'm having where it's like, well, no two projects are the same, and the value isn't always going to be equal either.
Yeah.
So being able to handle that conversation and understand what value this project has is like the next.
Can you give me an example? Like what's one of your latest value props that you gave a client?
Yeah, cool. And this was an example that I took straight from Emily Ruth Cohen. Not sure if you've encountered her work, but she's got like a book called Brutally Honest, and I went to one of her workshops that she had here, and the way that she suggested we frame our conversations, she gave the example of a hotel, understanding what the added revenue would be if one room at low season rate was full for the whole year. So I was talking to a resort owner in Bali, and I was like, you know, if this website was to fill out, you know, an extra room a year, like what would that mean financially?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's such a base thing that we'd expect this to do. But it's taking something where it's like, and in that conversation, they're like, yeah, no, that makes total sense. I don't know, $50,000. And as soon as that's articulated, I'm like, sick, you know,
awesome.
This isn't
For a fraction of it.
it's not an 8, 10, 15K project. It's like the value of this is at least kind of 50K. Absolutely. Because if we can't improve the business so that it's booking out one extra room a year, then something's off in the process anyway.
Yeah.
And I'd rather frame this project in that way and have to commit to achieving that.
Yeah, I love that.
Than just like, here's a price.
It kind of even frames your mentality around that too, as in, I'm not just designing a deliverable anymore either. I'm working on a result for a client.
Totally. It's like I'm in on this, and I need to hit this minimum.
Yeah, that's great. I think you'd also be putting in your best kind of work when you had that care factor to it as well.
Totally. But it has been a reframe, like that hasn't been happening for that long. Like I'd say in the last year that I've started to consider projects in this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I mean, you're obviously very conscious of getting that information, like Emily's book and other kind of platforms.
Yeah.
What are kind of really good ways that people can reach out to say someone they admire or want to get advice from?
It's hard to go past like Instagram DMs.
Yeah.
It's like a direct channel.
That makes it so easy.
Yeah. And people are so responsive.
Yeah.
If not at events, like I had so much airtime with Chris Doe in Brisbane. Like you'd expect him to be like off in a corner in some VIP area, but he was just working the whole conference the whole time.
Great.
And there were so many moments where it's just like, oh, I have this other question, like have another chat, you know, and another chat. So I think design conferences understand that there's a limit, like a barrier to entry can be the cost for some students. Yeah. But if you're able to go to those, then that's the best opportunity. Yeah. Just approach these people.
And putting yourself out there too, right? Like, same thing, I think you would get more value from going to something like that and connecting with the other people in the room as well than just sort of sitting there and taking notes about what's happening up on stage.
Totally, yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. Buying the ticket to the conference is not the thing.
Yeah.
It's going in with a mindset, it's like, I'm going to make heaps of friends.
Yeah.
Not, I'm going to get a job or like close this deal.
Yeah.
Because I think that comes off very quickly.
Yeah,
if you're having a conversation with someone.
Yeah, that's about your intent, right? Like you can't go in there with any sort of connections or relationships.
Yeah.
You kind of have to go in a little bit selfless and say, you know, first, who is this person? And then, is there an opportunity for me to help them out with anything?
Yeah.
I think is a good start.
For sure.
What was the big takeaway from Chris up there?
I think it was the beginning of like questioning mindset. You know, I was talking to him about numbers and he's like, yeah, like you can do 5 times that, no problems.
Yeah.
Like it just so confidently, so immediately. And I was just like, okay.
I love that.
Yeah, and that's kind of been, and as a result, I ended up doing this business boot camp that he's kind of running.
Yep.
And that's week 1. It's like mindset.
Awesome.
So it's very clearly linked. But I'd say that's the key takeaway is consider what beliefs you have about things and consider which ones might be limiting, because often they're just ceilings that we set for ourselves rather than ones that exist.
Do you have a few of those? Did it kind of make you more aware of it?
Yeah, for sure. Like just about how much I could charge, about, I initially thought that because I run my business as a sole operator, that was a negative. But through asking questions, it's like, well, is everyone who's a sole operator unsuccessful? Is that always the case? Are there huge agencies that are always the better option? And that helped a lot in going away from describing something as just team of one to like being a trusted advisor, like a consultant in the industry. Yeah.
Awesome. How do you then put that into practice? Like, does it then shift your daily routine or?
Yeah, it changes everything. That's why mindset's like, and that's why it's the first module.
Yeah.
But it's like once you start to see things differently, then it changes everything. And it begins to manifest in like messaging, in how I speak about subjects.
You have to be really conscious of your vocabulary, right? And the words you use, and particularly to yourself, but then outwards as well.
Totally, yeah. And it's an ongoing, like everything. It's a process of continuous improvement. So there will be things I say out loud. I'm like, nah, next time that's got to not be part of the message anymore. Even we were talking earlier about how we describe our podcast to people.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I'm just going to say here it is and have a listen. Not like, let me know if you stay awake for the duration of the episode.
That's right. Because there's that doubt, right? Like, even I think about it and go, oh, but there's guys that have millions of listeners on your thing, and I'm getting started at it, and I'm not fantastic at it yet. But like letting someone experience it for themselves, or
not like, well, as you mentioned, like not frame the way that they're going to experience it. Yeah,
that's great. So what about what would you say to someone who is going up against the larger agencies, or a freelancer or a sole trader? Like, what are those kind of key offering points, or even like themselves? How do you switch that from I'm not good enough, or I don't have the resources?
Yeah.
What are you offering?
I think one like change in mindset was going from wanting to just provide the same service all the time to wanting to understand and solve problems, and just being committed to uncovering the biggest challenges and solving them. And it doesn't always have to be challenges that you solve on your own. It can be like, great, here's my friend who I studied with, or who I dropped out with, or whatever.
You met at a conference?
Yeah, exactly. They'll hook you up. And I think it's really exciting to realise that you're just part of this huge community, and that we're all here to help each other out. Yeah, it's not like me versus agency. It's like agency slung you this job because it's beneath their minimum level of engagement, or vice versa. The
community is a big part. I've heard you talk about. Was it Brazil that you moved to?
Yeah, I lived in Brazil for the 2017, the duration of that year.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then that's where you sort of, I guess, opened up to the more community aspect of things and connections.
Well, I found my community. Yeah. And thanks so much. Like, you've listened to, you've done so much homework. I really appreciate it.
No, man, it's interesting to me.
To have done this research. But yeah, like, moved to Brazil, and I was like, didn't speak the language, didn't know any designers. I didn't think that designers kind of existed on the level that I was at the time.
That would have been scary as hell, right?
Yeah. But it's kind of do or die, It was pretty much that. It's like, I have to do this. I'm not going to be able to, or I wasn't able to get a job at a design studio there.
Yeah.
Because you get talking and it's like, you know, I don't speak Portuguese.
Yeah.
But yeah, I found my community online, and it was through Facebook groups like Logo Geek and like people critiquing logos and learning heaps from that.
That's great.
And it was all digi, like just typing out. Yeah. If I had my time again, and if anyone else is in that position, I'd recommend like getting on the video conferencing, because that's just like another layer.
Yeah, we're doing more of that lately too.
Yeah.
I would say too with the Facebook group stuff, I see a lot of guys, I think if you're not doing that, definitely jump in and start. But there is a right and a wrong way. Very similar to what we said about meeting people in real life.
Yeah.
Don't get into a Facebook group and just start posting, hey, I'm a designer, I'll do a logo for $150. Like,
yeah,
you know, engage, right? And converse. And
yeah, Facebook groups, like being used as marketplaces, like I'm yet to have a positive experience.
Yeah.
Every time a friend will like tag me in and they're like, oh, you should talk to Tom, like he can help you out with the branding or whatever. It's like there ends up being like 15 other, it's almost like 99 designs or
it's
5.
like a race to the bottom, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think and it is important to not just jump into every single group, or to try and be critical of like what's going on in there. If it is just a marketplace, then it might not be very helpful. Yeah. But looking for a place where it's a community and people looking to help each other out.
Yeah.
But that's also up to those who are running the groups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. But I think it can be valuable if you don't have a lot of connections in the space.
Yeah.
And same thing, you go there and try to help out, try and solve problems, see if anybody's asking questions that you know the answer to.
Yeah, and it's just like, it's just that first discovery that needs to happen.
Yeah.
It's like, one of the first for me was that the future community. And then you start to like dig away and uncover. It's like, oh my God, it's this whole galaxy. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. Such a great platform.
Yeah.
How are you finding the boot camp? Oh, we got the mindsets first, hey?
Yeah. Well, I'm up to week 4 now. It's been incredible. Like, learning so much. I think there are a few things that like are contributing to this being like such a like life-changing experience, really. Like just experiencing so much growth. One is like the buy-in, like how much you have to pay to do the course. That's just like, all right, I've put down this dosh, like I better show up every day and commit to every exercise. The other is again community, but like a very focused community. Like everyone in this boot camp, there's 50 of us, I believe, are all at a very similar stage.
Awesome.
And so, you know, we're encouraged to, or like the minimum is like partner up with one person. But it's like, nah, like I'm going to partner up with 6 people and have calls every day.
Yeah.
Because part of it's like role play and like practicing these conversations and reframing these things and supporting each other. It's like, it's not only just business conversations. It's like someone wants to have a difficult conversation with their wife. It's like, let's practice that. Let's go through these communication techniques and get to the bottom of this thing you haven't been speaking about for 6 months.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It does. It is applicable to everything in life, right?
Yeah.
I'm in a similar group, and I found that a lot of the value is from those kind of things, and sending somebody, realizing that when you're having a shit time as well, there's probably somebody else that has been through that.
Totally.
Or,
yeah.
You know, everyone gets just as lost sometimes, and I know, I've shot some of the guys stuff at nearly 1 a.m. in the morning, freaking out. I don't know what I'm doing. I hate this. And they reply back, and it's all, we jump on a video call. Like it's so important, making those connections for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. I think we've covered some cool stuff. With that platform and that obviously learning and being all that, I think it's good to say too that you can get trapped into the other way where you're just consuming so much content.
Yeah.
Like it is pretty saturated out there.
Totally.
So you do need to be really conscious of identifying the right stuff to listen to. And not only that, and particularly things like courses, which you tend to do more if you pay for them, but if you're doing like a lot of the free resources, it's implementation, right? Like 100%. You can sit there and watch that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, how are you? Was that something you developed? I mean, that speed of implementation once you learn something to go and put it in practice?
Yeah, I think I from the very start, it was like every project I'm going to use as an opportunity to learn something. So there was no kind of, I'm going to do this course and then maybe one day there'll be a situation where it's applicable.
Yeah.
It's like, I have this project coming up, or I saw that course on the net and I've just had this conversation with this person about their business.
Yeah.
I can do this. So I'm going to say yes to a custom WordPress theme, and I've never developed a website before.
Yeah.
Because I know I've got that course on super high, and I'm gonna just work through it like it's
cool.
there.
Yeah.
That was intense.
Yeah.
That was a lot to learn.
Dude, that's awesome. Throwing yourself at a challenge, right?
But yeah, I think that's probably a takeaway there, is that do these courses with a live project in, like, on the go, and ideally one where there's someone paying money, because skin in the game is often the difference.
Yeah. I mean, I even had to stop listening to a lot of the podcasts I like, because it kind of just started getting consumed, and I hadn't put anything, like, got to play catch up with the skills and the practical applications.
Yeah.
For sure, so
yeah.
Definitely be conscious.
Yeah, and I think one at a time.
One at a time?
Like when there's like, oh, I've got 5 audiobooks on the go and like 6 courses, it's like, whoa, like none of that's going to be taken on, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then tell me, like, it seems you hit a bit of a next phase as well, where you've realized how important it is for connections and learning and developing those skills, and then made a shift into, hey, I'm going to pass some of this stuff on to some other people as well.
Yeah.
In a more formal kind of setting. Like, what spurred that?
Well, I think it was my own experience. I just thought, wow, I felt so isolated to begin with.
Yep.
And I would hate for other people to feel that way. Like it just doesn't have to be the case.
No.
And
it happens, and I think we all kind of feel it to an extent.
For sure.
Yeah.
So it was just obvious, that like I've managed to learn these things. I'd love to like shave 3 years of pain off someone else's journey if I can, and share the resources that have helped me along the way.
Awesome.
Which is also, it's a learning experience, because initially I'd have these conversations, I'm like, here's a million things, here's everything. And they're just like, it's like they've just been hit by a tornado.
Yeah, it's so funny you said that. There was a young shooter that reached out to me a little while back.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm getting into it and I want to learn some stuff. And I did the same thing. I'm like, oh, I'm really excited to chat, right? Because I think,
here's 4 years in an email.
Yeah, that's it. Came in, had coffee, and I sat across. I'm like, okay. So I think I asked him one question and then just vomited a whole lot of stuff and kind of in a, you should be doing this way.
Yeah.
And that's totally the wrong approach. What's kind of that first conversation? So you've got mentorees. What do you call them?
Yeah, mentees.
Mentees,
I guess.
There you go.
Yeah.
Did they approach you? Did you kind of realize that there was someone there that needed a little bit of help?
Those that I've been speaking to have been through other friends of mine. The friends of mine have mentioned to them that I offer mentoring. So in each case, they've reached out to me, which is often a nice start, because it's like the initiative is taken, because there's nothing worse than unsolicited feedback and unsolicited advice is also something I'm trying to steer away from as well. It's more just asking questions, and it's more about guiding than just dominating the charge. Yeah. But it's really challenging,
I can imagine.
as you might have experienced yourself, to not just project your own experience and project what you'd do were you in the same position. Because sometimes, every time, what they want is not going to be identical.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what drives them is going to be what drives them, not what drives me.
Yeah. Do you like second guess yourself a little bit? I mean, in terms of whether you even know enough stuff to tell somebody else about it?
Well, yeah, I mean, now it's like no one's qualified to tell anyone what to do. And also from a purely selfish perspective, I think in having these meetings, I leave and it's like, all right, I gotta, which is probably linked to that, right? Like
100%.
If I'm gonna be here and be like a mentor figure to this person, then I better have my shit together.
You gotta have it together.
Yeah.
Because I think like that kind of stops people too, but I think a good way to get around that is exactly what you said, not telling someone, like just sharing your experience, right?
Yeah.
And coming at it from a storytelling perspective, just kind of sharing what you've learnt through doing that stuff and letting people know that they can kind of take it and do with it what they want.
Yeah, I like that. I like that take. It's about sharing a story, and if it resonates, amazing. If it doesn't, I'm not telling you that it's your story.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I like that. I'm gonna take that on board. Yeah.
Awesome. What should people do if they kind of have somebody that they want to reach out to? Like, is there an etiquette to slide into someone's DMs? They're at that stage.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I met with Frankie Ratford a few years back, who founded the Design Kids, and she's kind of got it down to a formula. And it's like, if possible, the ask is like for an hour of their time. It could be, and that's it. Just ask some questions. The bigger ask is like an hour of their time for 12 months, 1 month. For 12 months, so 1 hour a month. And within that framework, it would be, I'm going to come to you with what my challenges are. I'm going to set the agenda for the meeting. I'm going to set the time, and I'm going to provide the structure. Because the last thing that a mentor would want is like to have to create all of this structure and do all the work. I think if it's possible, make it easy for them, which would come through in the messaging, and don't be like, hey, can you give me 10 hours of your time? Or like, right. Hey, you haven't responded, you know.
That's the worst.
Yeah.
Or I hate, which I think people should never do. Can I buy you a coffee and pick your brain for a bit?
Yeah.
I think that's terrible. People should never do it. But yeah, man, like I've found too, going both ways, you've got to think about what's in it for them. And I think at some stage, most people want to give back, you know it from community and talking to people. They want to help out each other, and we've got an awesome creative industry here that most people are like that. I think they need to see that you actually have done the research on them a little bit as well.
Yep.
When I start a conversation with somebody, like I always kind of try and link something that they've done, some piece of work, something that might be a little bit more personable and niche-y, that's not like the first page of their website.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, if it's not a tailored message, then what's the point?
Yeah,
like, what's the point of reaching out? It shouldn't be about ticking boxes.
No,
it's like
absolutely.
So yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. If it's personalized.
Yeah, and I think it's a good way, like, because a lot of people, I guess, that are thinking about being a mentor to someone younger, like you said, they're busy, they're probably successful, they've got a lot of stuff on in the day. What's going to get them is actually having them believe in you to some aspect. Because if someone takes you on as a mentor, mentee, they become invested in your success as well, right?
Totally.
So,
yeah.
I haven't seen it done a lot, but I think what could work really well is go to them with sort of goals. Like if you're going to hit them up with a 12-month plan, this is where I am now, this is actually where I want to go. I've seen your trajectory over these years, and I think it might be a great way for me to hit that as well.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. Like, or here are some challenges I'm having, because the goals, I mean, the goals can be quite revealing, I guess. It's like, oh, so those are your goals, let's talk about them.
Yeah.
I don't think be the best roadmap for the year, but let's talk about it. Let's talk about what's motivating you setting those goals. But yeah, I'd love that as well. It's like, here's my 2 challenges, because you know, the problem solving side of my brain just like clicks into gear. Yeah. Like, sick.
I got this.
Yeah.
Tom, I think, dude, we've covered a lot of cool stuff. Obviously, you know, self-learning, applying what you learnt, putting yourself out there. and then kind of looking for ways that you can help and be part of a community and share that way. So thank you so much, man. I loved it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. We're trying to evolve a community here to share ideas and experiences to help each other learn, grow, and support each other as one. To help this movement, you can do two things right now. Send this to someone who you think needs to hear it, write us a review, and share it across your socials. And secondly, most importantly, go out there right now and be the best version of yourself that you can be. Be the change you want to see in the industry. You have the power to succeed and lift people up with your art, your words, and your soul. It will take hard work, but be that warrior badass that the world needs more of. Go out there and chase your true potential.